I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome our guest of honor, who is a member of the board of Blue Ocean Corporation. He's chairman of the ICC Cricket Committee. He's the former president of the Board of Control for Cricket in India and former captain of the India cricket team. It is the one and only Mr. Sourav Ganguly.
Good morning, everyone. My first event or association with Blue Ocean Corporation was in Mumbai. It was a year ago. And Blue Ocean was launching in India. And since then, a year has passed. And what I see this morning here in Dubai is such a pleasure to the eye. To see so many people, so many business organizations being involved this morning in this event with Blue Ocean really speaks of volumes the way Dr. Satya and his team and all the members of Blue Ocean have taken this company forward. I know they are starting their presence in India. For me, as I always say, that India is the most important and probably the best country in the world at the moment to go to. I go around the world, I see various places. The UAE obviously has been special. The development, the improvement, the technological upgrade which has happened in this part of the world is for everyone to see. As you drive from the airport within the city to other parts of Dubai and Abu Dhabi and areas around, you can see the development in this part of the world. But when you come to India, when you come and see our country, when you see what has happened in the last 10 years, it is just phenomenal. I go to England, I go to Australia, I go to South Africa, but I can tell you, and I say that with a lot of pride and a lot of respect, my country has moved leaps and bounds and gone a long way forward in every aspect of business, trade, sports, and other aspects of the society. For me, as a sportsman, I've seen the transformation. Starting a career in the mid 80s, 1986, 87, as a young 12, 13-year-old boy, just wanting to play the sport, not knowing exactly where this will take you, where it leads you. Very much like this country, Dubai. I came here first in 1995 to play in Sharjah, and to see what Dubai has transformed in the last 30 years, or to be precise, 28, 29 years. It's just absolutely been phenomenal. From those desert lands to see the infrastructure, to see the modernization is really a treat to the eye. And I've seen with sports happening in India since 1987, with a few grounds around the country, not the best infrastructure, the traveling around the country on trains to play cricket, staying in ordinary hotels, to what it delivers now around the world. India is the biggest and the most powerful and the most developed sporting nation in terms of cricket in the world. I had the honor and privilege to head the Board of Control for Cricket in India as the president for 3 years. The honor and the privilege to be the president of the Cricket Association of Bengal for a period of 5 years, captaining India for a period of 7 years. As a young boy, to see the transformation is just phenomenal. And that's what Blue Ocean does. Blue Ocean Corporation, with its consulting, with its, as you say, this supply chain, is on the process of transforming back-end work for the corporates around the world. I know Dr. Satya and his team are trying to make a presence in India, in the various cities, and trying to take this supply chain infrastructure to our country. And I hope that within the few years, his effort, his process will be a very successful one, even in that part of the world. Every time I come to a Blue Ocean Corporation event, Dr. Satya says, you must speak about leadership. I said, obviously I've been a leader of a mad cricket playing nation. But I'm sure many of you in this room have been leaders in your own way, in your businesses, in your professional world, in your jobs, in your sporting world, or in whatever way you want to establish and make a name and create an organization for yourself. For me, leadership, and I get this opportunity to speak at various places. For me, leadership was something which I learned as a young cricketer, and I'm sure it's the same with all of you. Nobody comes into a system being a captain, being a leader, being the head of an organization. It's a process. It's a process which you go through as a young professional. When you come in, whether it's in Blue Ocean, whether it's the biggest industrial office, whether it's in the sporting world, we all start from zero. And for us, the biggest guideline or the biggest roadmap for leadership is what you experience as you grow up in your various aspects of life. I was fortunate enough to lead a country, as I said, which is mad on cricket. So you can imagine, with the madness comes the pressure. With the madness comes the expectations. And I remember the first time when I became captain of my country in the year 1999 and just the beginning of 2000. The sport was different. And the professionalism in sport was different. The infrastructure in sport was different. And the way the world looked at cricket was different. So a lot of my leadership skills, a lot of my leadership work came from just basic experience and knowledge which I developed as a young professional. I had few basic guidelines of leadership, and over a period of time, being captain and leader in very high profile, high pressure organizations. They say being captain of India is probably the most difficult and the toughest job in the world, and rightfully so, because everyone knows the game more than you do, and everyone has an opinion. Everyone feels that what he thinks is right. And I'll tell you a small story. We were playing Pakistan in 2003 and I was captain of India, and I wasn't playing well. I wasn't scoring runs. So I told my coach that, I need a break. I need a break for a week. I need to go home between the second and third test match, get myself freshened up and come back and play the final test. So as I landed back in the street of Calcutta, came out of the airport, my people from home came to pick me up, my driver put the kit bag at the back of the car, and we were driving through the streets of Calcutta. But at that time, he was with me for about good 10 to 15 years. And as I drove through the streets of Calcutta, he, through the glass of the car, turned up to me and said, "Are you training enough?" I said, "Yes, I'm training enough. I'm training as hard as I can." "No, you're running between the wickets have become slow." So I said, "What makes you say that?" I said, "No." He said, no, I saw you take that second run with Sachin. He was a lot quicker than you were as he turned around and came back for the second run. So I was obviously not in the best of moods because I wasn't playing well. So I didn't say much to him, and I knew him for a long period of time. And I said, "Okay, you please take me home as quickly as you can." I reached home and I wanted to have lunch. My mother was there and she was more worried than I was because I wasn't playing well. And I was having lunch. So the lady who was serving lunch, she still works at my place, and she kept putting some rice and dal on my plate. And then she stopped after a while. After a couple of spoons, she stopped after a while and I said, "I need some more." He said, No, don't eat so much. You're not playing well. You need to get fitter. Yeah. So this is what we face in our country. Whenever you played Pakistan, you order room service in the food, and I was captain for 7 years. So I realized that, when you order food, I used to order food, and as the room service boy would knock, you go into the washroom, and you pretend that you are having a bath or changing yourself, and the room service guy would say, "Sir, the bill." I said, "You leave it. Once I finish, I'll sign it and keep it out of the room." And the reason I did that was because the first thing he would look at me and say, "Sir, kal century marna hai. You must get 100. So this is what you faced as a professional sportsman in our country. This game was so popular, so close to everyone, that along with it, the pressure was enormous. So in my journey to leadership as a young player in the year 2000, I had no hard and fast rules. I did not know what it was. I never read the book of the art of captaincy. I just did what I knew was best for the team. And for me, the most important thing, and I'm sure it's with all the corporate world, with all of you here who are trying to make a name for yourself with Dr. Satya and his company, Blue Ocean, it's about the people who you work with. It's the talent who you work with. In a team sport, in a corporate culture, your success and failure depends on the people who are with you. Nothing happens alone. Nothing happens just by the leader. And as they always say, a good leader is as good as his team. So for me, the biggest and the first and foremost challenge as a captain was to identify the talent. And I can tell you in India, the talent in sport is enormous. You go on a Saturday, Sunday on the streets of Mumbai, Calcutta, Delhi, to the smaller cities now, as they say, the tier 2 cities in India, Ranchi. You go to Chennai, you go to Bangalore, you'll see young boys and girls with kit bags heavier than they are at their back going to play the sport. Because they all want to become a Tendulkar, they all want to become a Kohli, they all want to become a Bumrah, they all want to become a Dravid. So that is what the sport is and means to the young children in our country. So for a leader, it was very important to identify the right talent. The talent who will actually take your team forward. A talent with attitude, the talent with the right foresight, and the talent with the basic ethics of putting in the hard work. So for me, identification of the talent was very, very important. In a professional world, in a business world, a lot of opportunities. As a young entrepreneur, if you don't get an opportunity to work for a government organization, you go and work for a private organization. You don't get to work for the Ambanis, you get to work for the Jindals. You don't get to work for the Jindals, you get to work for the Tatas. But in your national team, it was 11 out of the millions who played the sport. So on a Saturday evening, you would be playing in front of 100,000 capacity. And if you don't perform, the next Saturday would be a game with 3 men and a dog watching. So that was the drop. Because only 11, as I said, of the millions who played the sport could play for the country. So you can imagine the pressure, you can imagine the expectation, you can imagine what the public wanted you to do. So for me, the identification of players was very important. And I don't know how many of you are attached to Indian cricket or followed Indian cricket over a period of time and have heard about the names of Tendulkar, Dravid, Sehwag, Zaheer, Harbhajan, Lakshman, Yuvraj Singh. They are the MS Dhoni. They are the stalwarts of Indian cricket. And that has happened over a period of time. But as a leader, as a captain, it was important to identify which talent would take the team and you forward. Once you identified the talent, and I was fortunate enough during my time as captain to be appreciated and to be recognized for unearthing a lot of talent who went on to become great players in sport in the cricketing world. Once you identified the talent in a group, it was important for you as a captain, and it's important for you as a leader, even in the corporate world, is to take the fear of failure away. Because all of us in this room, in sports, in any business of our life, have this biggest fear that what happens if I can't? What happens if I fail? Everyone fails. Everyone fails in every aspect of society. But the best ones fail lesser than the unsuccessful ones. The great Sachin Tendulkar played 700 matches for India. He scored 100 international hundreds. So the remaining 600 matches was not up to what he expected or not what the world expected out of him. So failure is a part of your journey to be successful. But it is the fear of failure which actually holds you back in your journey to success. And as a leader, as a head of the group in any organization, it's important that you understand and find a way to take the fear factor away from individuals. When you play the sport, as I said, you get scrutinized by everyone. You get scrutinized by the press, by the media, by your friends, by your family, by people around you, everyone. Everyone scrutinizes you because you're playing for the country. It's an understood that, you play for the country means you have to perform all the time. The country has to win all the time, but that's not possible. In a corporate world, you have to have the best quarters every time. That's not possible. You'll have one good quarter, you'll have a couple bad quarters, and then you bounce back to have another good quarter. So the best in the business find a way to handle the fear of failure. It's about creating your own zone of performance. It is about creating a barrier around you which absolutely eradicates outside influence and creates an environment for performance. And I think that is very important in your journey to success. And the most important part of leadership is about taking the fear factor away from individuals. Once you pick a professional, whether it's cricket, whether it's football, whether it's business, you give them the environment to perform. You give them an environment to express themselves. As they say that you don't hire professionals to tell them what to do, but you hire professionals for them to tell you what to do. The best in the business learn from the professionals they hire and allow them a free environment to perform. In a world, as I said, in sport, once you pick someone, you don't worry about anything else. You don't worry about the criticism. You don't worry about what the selectors think about you. You don't worry about the captain thinks about you. All you need to know is that white or the red cricket ball which comes out of the hand of the bowler. And it's the same in business. It's about the job in hand. It's about what you need to achieve at that particular moment. A lot of us look too far ahead. A lot of us, because of their desperation to succeed, look too far than what they need to. And I think the matured ones, the professional ones, the only way you can deal with is to look what is in hand, is to do the best of what you have in store at that particular moment. Because if you do well at that particular moment, it takes care of the future. So the biggest maturity, the biggest aspect of life which you need to understand and accept is that live in the present. And that is the most important characteristics of a leadership, is that along with the talent you have, along with the professionals you hire, you give them that guidance of taking the fear factor away. You give them the guidance of living in the present. You give them the guidance of making the present the best. It's about scoring. It's about how you go about scoring a test match 100 or a one-day 100 or a T20 100. As you walk in, you don't get to 100. You have to bat for 6 hours, at some stages for 2 hours, at some stages for 1 hour to get 100. And you start from zero. So it's important to focus and live with that next ball, the next project which is in your hand. So for me, it was important about identification of talent and taking the fear factor away. The second aspect which I believed a lot was man management. When you work with a lot of people, work with a lot of group, as you do in Blue Ocean, as you do in a lot of industries where you have thousands and lakhs of staff working together, some of you who you don't even deal with it, don't even deal on a daily basis. As a sporting team, it was a lot easier because you dealt with 15 at a time and you were in first-hand connection with all of them. But sometimes when you work in a big corporate, sometimes you don't even know who the person who's actually making a difference right at the bottom of the ladder, being the leader of the project. So for me, man management was important. We in India, we are a huge country with diversification, with people coming from different parts of the country. A person coming from the western part of India was different from someone from the southern part of India, from the eastern part of India, from the northern part of India, with difference in languages, with difference in attitude, with difference in food, with difference in the way they lead the daily life. And as a leader, as a captain of a team, it was important that you understood to manage every individual, because no individual is same. No individual works the same way. No individual delivers the same way. And it is very important to understand as a leader how to get the best of every individual you work with. A lot of us believe that my way is the highway as a leader. And I can tell you with my experiences over a long period of time dealing with some absolutely talented and God-gifted individuals, it never works that way. The best leaders in business, the best leaders in sport, the best leaders in professional life understand, adjust with the professionals they work with. I had an individual in a team who was absolutely meticulous. If you asked him the night before a game, saying that, how do you prepare? And if you watch him in the morning of the game, you'll see him do exactly the same thing. Be at the breakfast table at 7:30, finish breakfast, be at the bus at 8 o'clock, and ready for a game to win for the country. And there was another individual who, when you woke up in the morning and walked past his door, you knocked on his door and said, hey, listen, are you up? We have a test match to play. We have a 50-over game to play. We have a T20 game to play. But as a leader, you must understand that both of them are different. Both of them have their own way of succeeding. And ultimately, it's what they do on that field is more important than way they approach the project. So it's very important, as I say, as a leader of a group, it's not to believe in my way or the highway, but adjust to the different habits and the different way of being successful of different individuals in the country. So man management is very important in your journey to success. It's about allowing individuals to express themselves. It's about allowing individuals to play the way they want to work the way they want to deliver the way they want to. And I think that adaptation, that adjustment is very important in your leadership role. I played with some absolute champions. There was Virendra Sehwag at the top of the order. I don't know, many of you have seen him bat. And there was Rahul Dravid at number 3. And people asked me that, both of them were great players for India. And what is the difference you saw among them and how you handled them to success? I said, when you watched Viru play and when you sit with Viru across the table and ask him about his game, ask him about how he wants to succeed. He was an opening batsman and probably the best opening batsman I've seen after Sunil Gavaskar. And then there was Rahul Dravid at number 3, batting for India. And the hardest thing was to sit next to Virendra Sehwag when he would get out early in a test match. He opened for India. He got out early, and then you had Rahul Dravid batting at number 3. And when you asked Virendra Sehwag that how do you make that new ball old, he said, I'll hit that new ball and make it old. And then when you asked Rahul Dravid to bat at number 3 and ask him, how are you going to make that new ball old? He said, I'm going to leave deliveries outside the off stump. So there were two individuals who went about the job in a completely different way. And then there had to be times when you had to tell Viru, because you were padded at number 5, he would get out and sit next to you with a cup of coffee, and Dravid would be leaving deliveries outside the off stump. And he would sit next to you and say 4, 6, 4. Then you have to go and tell Viru, your chance is over. You got dismissed out early. You go and sit in the dressing room. You don't sit there and eat my head telling me how to play that ball at that particular moment. So, and when you go about it and when you think about it at the end of the day, you realize that, this is how it works. This is how success works. This is how team building works. Because you have two individuals with two different ways of achieving success. And as a leader, it's very important that you allow them to succeed in their way. I'll tell you a small story. I had some great fast bowlers in the team. Zahir Khan was one, a young left-arm fast bowler. And we were touring Australia in the year 2003. We were touring Australia, and Australia were a great side then. The likes of Matthew Hayden, Steve Waugh, Glenn McGrath, Shane Warne, probably the best cricketing team I've seen in the last 40-45 years. We had a big team meeting the night before the test, and I sat with Zahir for about good 15-20 minutes and said, this is the way you must bowl to Matthew Hayden. He wasn't playing the short ball well, and I said, I'll give you a field, I'll give you a deep fine leg, deep square leg, deep mid wicket, and you need to just come and bowl short to him with the new ball. We were playing in Brisbane at the Gabba, and it was a very quick bouncy wicket. So I sat with Zahir the night before the test, and I said, Zach, he's someone who's played very well against us. We need to get him out early if we have to be successful in this series. And this is my plan as a captain, which you need to execute on the ground tomorrow. He said, yeah, everything's fine. Don't worry. I've completely understood. So as the test match started, we decided to bowl first. I gave the new ball to Zach, and I said, Zach, are you ready? And this is the field I gave. He said, yeah, no problem. This is the field, and I'll bowl to that. First ball, he runs up and pitches it up. He pitches it up and swings it away. So I look up to him and I say, he's warming up a bit, so maybe he'll take a little bit of time. The next ball he runs up and pitches it up again. He does it for a couple of balls, and then I walk up to him at mid-on and I say, Zach, we spoke exactly the opposite last night. I have a different feel for him. I have a deep square leg, deep fine leg, deep mid-wicket, and I expect you to bowl short, and there is 50,000 people watching at the ground, and there is a few millions watching on television, and I look like a fool. He said, no, after our meeting last night, I went back to my room and I thought that, the field you'll give to him, he will think that this is the length I'm going to bowl. But I did exactly the opposite the next morning. He did manage to get Matthew Hayden out. But the crux of our story is that as a captain, as a leader, I sat with him the whole evening having a different plan for an individual to be successful. And here it was, my premier fast bowler, one of the most important men of the team, who did completely the opposite in the ground the next day, and he was still successful. I was furious after the first over, saying that, I am the captain of the team, I run this team, and you did exactly the opposite. But as I went back at lunchtime, 2 hours after the start of the game, we were at lunch, and I sat separately. I was still very angry because I didn't agree and didn't accept the way Zahid tried to execute. But as I went through the lunch and went through the thought processes and calmed myself down, the most important lesson I heard, I had for myself as a leader, saying that, Sourav Ganguly, this is what leadership is all about. Every time what you think, every time what you plan may not be the best for the team, may not be the right plan at the time of execution. But you have 10 other individuals working with you, trying to achieve the same result as you are, and they are thinking it differently. So sometimes in your journey to success, it's important that the people you manage, that the people who you work with, you allow them to do their way. The best leaders in sport, in business, because remember, in sport, there is no retake. A lot of people ask me that, what is the difference between sport and business and real life and films? I said, in sport, when you nicked a delivery outside the off stump of a Glenn McGrath or a Pollock or a Bumrah or a Shami, you couldn't go to the umpire and say, can I bat again? He'll say, no, you'll have to come back for another game. But in other aspects of life, there's a retake. So the risks, the chances of failures in sport are a lot more than any other aspects of life because you don't have the time to correct. And the biggest lesson I had from that test match with Zahir was that, boss, you may be the captain of the team, you may be the leader of the ship, but here is another individual who probably thinks differently than you are. And if you want to be a successful leader of a group, my group was 15, your group could be 50,000, your group could be 10,000. If you want to be a leader of a group of men, it's also about understanding and accepting that sometimes some members of the group are probably thinking better than you are. And I think that is where the man management skills of every leader comes into the business. It's about understanding, accepting that in your journey to be successful, you have to be flexible at times. My third most important aspect of success and leadership is about vision. Is about vision and planning. All of us plan to succeed. Yes, it may not work all the time the way you plan. The best leaders plan, the best groups plan, and then keep adjusting as the process goes on. But it's very important as a leader to have a vision of where you want to go as a unit. And it varies from individual to individual. And to see Blue Ocean succeed, to see Blue Ocean Corporation reach where it has over a period of time, is so happy. Is so happy to see in the last 1 year. And I was with Dr. Satya this morning, and he said, Saurav, when we started this business, we've gone to India. We had a certain idea in mind. We had a certain way of looking things in mind. But as 1 year of my work has passed, whether it's in Dubai, whether it's in England, whether it's in Cairo, whether it's in India, I see a much better result, a much better goal, a much better vision, a much broader success path in this last 1 year. And I think that's what vision is all about. It's about identifying what you want to do and then keep adjusting in your journey as you keep growing bigger and bigger. When I first became captain in the year 2000 for India, we were a great side. We had some outstanding players over the period of time. The talent which India has had over a period of time was phenomenal. But as we went outside the subcontinent, as we went to England, as we went to Australia, as we went to South Africa, we were a bunch of very good, talented young players with exceptional personal skills, exceptional ability. But when it came to winning in different conditions, in quick, bouncy wickets, in tough situations, we did not manage. There was 100 from Tendulkar, there was 100 from Ganguly, there was 100 from Dravid, but somehow India wouldn't win. And for me as leader during that period, the biggest vision was to change the culture when we went away. Because in India, on turning pitches, we had some outstanding spinners in Harbhajan Singh and in Anil Kumble and Ravichandran Ashwin in the later years, Ravindra Jadeja, who would just win you test matches on their own. And sometimes as a captain, in those conditions, you would actually think, what am I doing as a captain? Because, these people are so good in these conditions that they win you games on their own. So the vision was to change how we travel, how we play abroad, how we adapt to those conditions. And that required a massive change in the mindset, the massive change in the way you thought, the massive change in the way you approached. I've always believed that if you think positive, if you think about winning, if you think about success all the time, it is going to happen at some stage or the other. The best professionals, the successful athletes, the successful professionals are more positive than the non-successful ones. Yes, they are a bit talented, more talented than the others, the more talented than the non-successful ones. But it's the mind which actually is a lot stronger, a lot better, and a lot positive than the unsuccessful ones. So vision and planning is very important in your journey to success. It's what you want to achieve. It's how much you want to achieve over a period of time. Sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves by planning too much. Sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves by too much expectations. That this is what the person who's watching me, the person who's judging me expects me to achieve. But in sport, in business, in the professional world, it's your own expectations. If you're always running to fulfill, make up, live to somebody's expectations, it's going to be a very, very tough journey. It's about understanding your vision. It's about understanding what you want to achieve and then working towards the goal over a period of time. Nobody has become the best overnight. Nobody has become the best over a year. People call Tendulkar, Kohli, Lakshman, Bumrah, the greats, the icons, because they have performed over a period of 15, 20 years. So if you want to be the best, if you want to be remembered, it's about performances, it's about longevity, it's about how long you keep performing over a period of time. You will have your ups and downs. There is no one in the world who's been successful all the time. It's like a boxing ring. The best in the business get up when they fall because everyone falls. As I said, the great Tendulkar has had 100 international hundreds in 600, 700 matches he's played for India. But it's about the next day. It's about the next morning. It's about putting the disappointments of the last evening behind and looking forward to the next day. It's about waking up the next morning and believing that this is going to be my day. Whatever happened last night, whatever happened the month before is past. It's about learning from it and becoming better in the future. So vision and planning is very important. In sport, my fourth point on leadership is about self-belief and hard work. When we grew up in school, in the professional world, there was a very simple word which said, if you believe you can, you can. For me, that word had enormous power. The difference between a successful one and a non-successful one is the faith, is the belief in yourself, that I will make it happen over a period of time. I spoke to a young batsman. I said, you bat for 3 hours, you train for 3 hours, you practice, you have the best equipments, you're hitting cricket balls as much as you do. But what separates you from the Kohlis and the Rohit Sharmas of the world? So he didn't have an answer. I said, it's the belief. It's the belief on your ability. All of us work hard. All of us go to offices. All of us go to our corporate tables. All of us go to the project we are given. But why is it that somebody is more successful than the other? Yes, there is talent. Yes, there is a bit more ability than the other. But it's that deep thought within that I will succeed. I think that's very important. I met, when I was a young player in 1996, I first went to England with the Indian national team, and I was a young boy, a young 21-year-old boy, and wanting to make a name for myself in the international arena. I met a great West Indian. We were playing in Sussex in the first game, and I wasn't playing the game, and I was sitting out, and I met a great West Indian, Desmond Haynes. Many of you would have heard his name, Desmond Haynes and Gordon Greenwich, two of the best opening batsmen of that generation. I was so desperate to go and speak to him because I was a young boy who was wanting to be successful, and I met him in the dressing room when his team was fielding, and I said, sir, you've been such a champion yourself. You've played for your country for so many years with so much of performances, so much of runs. You've played in an era where the West Indies were the best in the business. What is it that made you successful? What is it, along with your talent, made you different from the others? He said, Sourav, it was my belief. Every night I went to bed thinking that I will be successful the next morning. I have been successful more number of times than not. And every time I went to bed the night before, worried of how the result would be, invariably I did not succeed. He said, I played the best fast bowlers in the world. I played the likes of Dennis Lilly, Jeff Thompson of Australia. I played the likes of Ian Botham and Bob Willis of England. I played the likes of Donald and Pollock of South Africa, the likes of Kapil Dev of India. And my success, my performances, my failure was so closely related to the way I thought about myself. He said, every night I went to bed thinking that I'll play the likes of Lilly, Thompson and Pascoe with the middle of the bat. I did. And every night I went with a bit of tentativeness, bit of doubt in my mind of my ability. I did not succeed. So I had to practice this mental conditioning of telling myself every morning, every night that I was the best. I'll tell you a story of an actor, a very successful actor. I was playing for the Kolkata Knight Riders in the IPL, and it was raining one afternoon. And I was sitting with my group of boys, and he was there with us, sitting and chatting as it was raining heavily. So I asked him a question. I said, what made you most successful? What made you so successful and so different from the others? He said, Sourav, when I first came to Bombay, I was not a Bombay boy, and when I first came to Bombay, I had no one. I rented a one-bedroom flat in Bombay on Bandra, and I was next to the sea because I always liked living next to the sea. I had one-bedroom apartment. I had no money, and I was not as good-looking as a lot of other actors. I did not have a huge family background where a lot of them came through the various stages of acting and made a name for myself, which allowed me an automatic entry into the world. I couldn't dance as good as some of the others, which is so important in acting. I used to do a practice every morning. I used to have a mirror at home. I used to get up, and every morning before I went to work, I would stand in front of the mirror and say that I would be the best with whatever ability I have. Because every individual is differently talented. Some have a bit more talent than the other, some have a bit less talent than the other. But I used to wake up every morning and stand in front of the mirror and say to myself that I will be the best with whatever I can, with whatever I have. Because, for all of you here in this room, for someone who I played the sport with, the talent was different. I batted with one of the greatest batsmen of all time. And a lot of people ask me that, why were you so successful? Why did you become so successful? I said, I played with someone who was much better than I was. who was a lot more successful than I was. And every time I went out to bat for India and I batted with him at the other end, I said to myself that, I have to lift my game up. Otherwise, the world would think that I don't belong to this level. So for me, it was about matching somebody's ability because the entire country was watching. And that made me a better player. I used to go back every day in the evening in the hotel room and say that if he can do it, I can do it as well. I may not be as talented, as gifted as he is, but I will do it my way to be successful. And a lot of us in this room, a lot of us in this world, waste a lot of time trying to be successful in somebody else's way. It is very important to understand what your talent is, what makes you successful, how you can be successful, which is a lot different from the others, and then believe that your way is the way to be successful. And then you work hard on it. And then you work hard on your game. You work hard on your professional life. Your success, your results is invariably proportionate to what you put in. And I can say that with my experience over a period of 20 years of a professional sport, under tremendous pressure, under tremendous expectation, under tremendous competition from others who were as good, probably better than I was. Competition is good. Competition keeps you on the toes. It's very important to be challenged in life. It is very important to be, questioned in life by people because it actually makes you better. When you compare yourself with somebody who is doing better than you, you actually raise the bar for yourself. You actually work harder to be successful. And with an experience of 20 years being under pressure, the best days of a professional's life is when he's worked the hardest. Performance, result, success, as I said, is related completely to what you put in. And if you go around and ask the best, you'll find out that their best days are when they work the hardest. So along with self-belief, along with the talent which you have, along with what has been gifted to you by the Almighty, it's what you want out of it is very, very important. Talent is what you're born with, but your success is what you do with your talent. It's the effort, it's the hard work, it's the time you put in to be successful. So it's very important that in your journey to be successful, in your journey to be a leader, in your journey to achieve what you want, it's about vision, it's about planning, it's about dreaming, it's about believing, and it's about working hard day in, day out to be successful. My fifth very important aspect of leadership, especially when you work in a team, when you work with people, who influence your results, who actually help you to be successful, it's about trust and faith in the members. If you want to be a leader, you need to be trusted by the people who you work with. Having captained India for a long period of time, I was the wall between the players and the selectors. I was the drawing board for the players, their problems, their successes, and the communicator in between the people and the player who made the decisions. So it was very important that you be trustworthy, you be honest to the people you work with. There was one cricketer in the year 1999 who had come as a young player to India, and he played a couple of matches, wasn't very successful, and obviously in a country we live in, he was dropped. I remember a conversation with him that night. I was captain of the team, and I remember a conversation with him that night, and he came up to me and said, Captain, I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed that I've not made it. I've not been successful. I've not performed, and I'm not surprised that I have been left out of the team. And it's going to happen to many of you, that if you don't perform, if you don't deliver, your boss will ask you to leave. And he came to me that night and he said, what do I do? I had two options. Either to tell him that night, no, everything's perfect, you're playing well, you'll be back soon, and give him a completely different picture. But it was very important for me that night to give him the right picture. Young boy, 20, 21 years old, just like I was in 20, 21 years old, wanting to play for the country, wanting to be successful like many of you in this room. And I told him, you listen, you've come out of first class cricket. The level of cricket at this level is slightly higher. You need to become a better player of fast bowling if you want to play for the country. He left that night. I never met him for the next 3 or 4 years. My career went on. I went on to become a better player, a bigger player in the time to come. 4 years down the line, that same player's name came up for selection. And I saw his name, and the selectors were wanting him to play for the country. I picked him in the squad, and I remember meeting him after the first test when he got 100. I went up to him and said, I met you 4 years ago and you were a different player. And what I see you now, 4 years down the line, you're a completely different batsman. What's the difference? He said, sir, it's that conversation that night which changed me completely. I could have easily walked away from that room hearing all the good things from you, that you're good, it didn't work for you, it happens, you'll come back better. But I got the true picture that evening, saying that I'm not a good player of fast bowling, I'm late when it comes to genuine pace. And I went back to my home state, and I worked for the 3 years for this day, knowing what my limitations were, knowing what held me back in being successful. But the most appreciated thing that evening for me was the honesty I got from speaking someone who made a decision on me. And I think that's very important with all of you. If you want people to be successful, because none of us, as I said, will be successful for a long period of time. None of us will be successful every day. But if you want people to come back as successful ones, it's about giving them the right picture. It's about making them believe that, there is enough trust in these four walls to make you successful. I played with some great champions who performed over a long period of time, champions who didn't perform for some period of time, but again went up to become the best in their business. And I'll tell you a story about one of my dear friends and a great bowler for India. I remember going to Australia in 2003, and Australia, as I said, was the best cricket team in the world at that time. We were in a selection meeting, and the selectors had a different idea about an individual. They didn't want him to tour Australia because they felt that another person was a better proposition for that tour than him. And this gentleman, for a long period of time, had been enormously successful for the country. I remember going into the team meeting, selection meeting, and saying to the selectors that I want this individual in the side. The selectors did not agree. He said, no, he's not bowling well, he's not in the best of forms, you cannot pick him. I say this story because many of you in this room will go through that situation. I insisted as a leader. The meeting went on for a while, and then ultimately I got that individual in the squad. And before the meeting ended, those 5 selectors told me that if this gentleman doesn't perform in the next 2.5 months, we will sack you before, then we sack him. So I said, okay, we'll see what happens in 2.5 months. Obviously, the message went to him when we went to Australia. And I remember a small word on the flight. He came up to me and said, thank you for backing me. So I said, no, you deserve it, because you've been a champion over a period of 10 years. And I still believe in you. I still believe that you can win it for our team. And I'm looking forward to your performance in the next 5 test matches. The series started. He was outstanding, to say. On the 5th test, in Sydney, on the 5th morning, and India was about to win the test match, I remember him coming up to me and saying, Sourav, we are at a very important juncture in this series. We are on our way to create history. And I had a few bowlers who were tired because it was a long series, long test match. He said, you don't worry about anything else. There's 90 overs to be bowled in one day. I'll bowl the 45 overs from this end. And he was my best bowler during the tour. And you worry about the 45 overs from the other end. I said, no, there's a lot of effort in bowling. You'll get tired. I need to keep changing. He says, no, you only change when I tell you that I'm tired and you need to change. He not only had a great series, but finished with the most number of wickets in the world at the end of the season, even more than what he had achieved when he was at his best and nobody was questioning his talent. And the reason I say to all of you is that, in your journey to be successful as a business, corporate, and whatever you do, you will have people who has made you successful over a long period of time. And just like individuals, just like human beings, they'll also have dips in this period. And I think the real challenge of a leader during that period would be to understand the limitations and the strengths and the power of that individual and support him. Sometimes you get more success by backing individuals rather than replacing individuals. And every time, even now, when we have finished playing for a long period of time, I meet him, spend time with him, I still get that same message that if as a leader of a group, we were not supportive of him during that period when his chips were down, when he wasn't performing, we would have lost an absolute champion. And the reason why he was successful is because as a group, as a unit, you supported your best during the tough times. Many of us in this world, because of the choices we have, because of the opportunities we have, because of the amount of talent we have, we believe that the best and the most important thing of success is replacement. Keep changing, bringing in new people. Yes, that's important too. But it's very important to understand the balance of the best and the new ones. And in the way of doing such things, you actually rediscover the best who have served you over a long period of time. So it's not just about, elimination in life. It's about addition in life. It's about backing in life. The easiest thing is to eliminate someone, but the hardest thing is to stand up for people who have performed for a long period of time. My last, because I know I've been speaking for a long period of time, I was told it was only 20 minutes, but I think I've gone beyond 20 minutes. My last and final thing for all of you in this room is when the chips are down. Now, as I said, when you play for India, on a Monday morning, you see 100,000 watching. And if you don't perform, on a Saturday morning, you see 3 men and a dog watching you play. That is the drop, that is the jump we have as professionals in life. And it's the same thing for you. The higher you go, the more the expectations, the more the risks, the more the challenges, and longer and quicker the fall. Now, I went through such an experience once when I was captain of India. I was dropped from the team from being captain to be dropped and not getting a place in the team for 6 months. My father, just like every father in international sport, loved me watching, playing for the country. And I used to remember having conversations with him during that period. And every time India would play well, he would come to me and say that, you won't be picked again. You won't get an opportunity again because there's so much talent in this country and they're performing. I would listen to him. Initially I wouldn't answer, but one fine day I sat with him on a Sunday morning and I said, I've got 2 options at this moment. I have achieved so much. I've played for 10 years. That time I was India's most successful captain. Most number of runs, wickets, 10,000 runs in one-day cricket. I said, I have 2 choices. I accept what I have achieved and be happy with it. I was 32, 33 years old that time, and I accept what I achieved and be happy, or I give it a try. And all of you in this life, once you get to a phase where you've worked over a long period of time, when you've worked with corporates, when you've worked with businesses, when you've been successful, as you're aging, you will face these challenges. There'll be young professionals pushing you. There'll be your bosses, your captains, your owners starting to think that is he gone past his best? Is there a young professional better than him? Is it the time to look up to a young professional who will take this group ahead in the next 15 years? You will face all these questions as you grow older and as you spend a lot of time in your professional world. I told my father, I said, listen, I'm going to give it a try. I'm 32, 33. I still feel I can play for another 5, 6 years because sport is different. Sport, you don't play for longer, you retire early. I said, I don't want to get to an age of 40 where I think and say to myself that, when the chips are down, when people put you under pressure, and all of you will be under pressure in this room at different stages. When people put you under pressure, you did not try enough. I was out of the team for 7 months, and then I came back and we were touring South Africa, one of the hardest places to play cricket. I had a young journalist friend. He picked up the phone and said, "Why South Africa? It's quick, it's pacey, it's bouncy. They have the best fast bowlers in the world. It's a tough place to play cricket. Why not once you come back from South Africa?" And I think a lot of you will face these questions in your journey to be successful. When you have been a top professional for a long period of time, you will get to answer these questions. And I remember telling him that, yeah, I can play in India on easier pitches, flatter pitches, but I want to go to South Africa. Because if I perform in South Africa in tough conditions, I'll get the confidence of my captain, my selectors, my members back. And I said, having been around for such a long period of time, I really want to go through this. I worked hard. I played well in that series. I scored the most number of runs for India. And I came back to India, and I hadn't been a part of the one-day team for a good 6-7 months. They picked me for the one-day team, and I had the most runs that year. The reason I tell you this story is that, I went on to play for another 4 years after that with a lot of success. And then I finished, as all of us do at some stage of our career. And when I finished, I went up to my teammates and I said, I want to hang my boots and I don't want to play anymore. One of the best mates of my team said, Sourav, this is the best I've seen you bat in your entire career. The last 4 years has been the best I have seen you. And I'm saying this because previous to those 4 years, I have been captain of the side for 7 years with no pressure. Nobody spoke about my place. Nobody threatened my position. India were doing well. And all of you will do this, go through this. That you will not be threatened. People will say that you are the best. And then you'll go through this period where you'll be dropped, where you'll be asked to leave. People will lose faith on you. And then you come back and play another 4 years. And I cherish those words from one of my teammates where he said that, you've batted the best. And the reason I tell you all this is, all of us in our journey to be successful, in our journey to achieve what we want, we want an arm around our shoulder. Somebody to come to you and say, you're doing a great job. You're probably the best. What you've done, nobody else has done. But you will also actually go through the phase where somebody will say, you're past your best. There's a young professional waiting who's better than you. But it's your own music within. It's your own mind within, the own sound within. And for those 4 years, I knew that every series was a test for me. Like for you, it'll be every project. Every job your boss gives you, because you're scrutinized. Because every time you'll go through this, is he good or is he past his best? Is he still good or is he past his best? And I realized that being under pressure for those 4 years in such manner got the best out of me. So to all of you in this room, sometimes when you don't have an arm around your shoulder, when you have people judging you, when you have people losing faith in you, but if you don't lose the music within, if you don't stop trying, if you don't stop working hard, you'll actually realize the best in you. You'll actually realize that you're more talented, you did the best even more than when the world thought there was nobody to replace you. And what sport did, what pressure did, what expectations did, was made you realize that it's about you. It's about what you want to do with yourself. It's about how far the distance you want to go. It's about what you want to achieve. There is no guideline. There is no restriction. There is no limit. There is no one who can say that you can only create a 5,000 crore company. There's no one who can say you can only create a 20,000 crore company. There's no one you can say you can play 10 test matches, 50 test matches, 100 test matches. It's about you, your life, your dreams, and what you want to achieve, and how far you're ready to go that distance. So as I finish and as I say thank you to all of you, thank you to Dr. Satya, the Blue Ocean team, the Blue Ocean Corporation. Remember one thing, and I say that to everyone before I finish, that it's never over till you actually believe it's over. Thank you.